The church doors slammed open with a sound that echoed through the vaulted ceiling, silencing the whispers, freezing every breath in the room. She stood there, no veil, no bouquet, no white dress. Alana Reed, the bride everyone thought had disappeared, was back, wrapped in a dress the color of fresh blood. A wave of gasps rolled through the pews. A few guests even stepped backward, as if they had seen a ghost return to reclaim its place. At the altar, Evan Blake, the groom who had humiliated her just 3 weeks earlier, stumbled a step toward the aisle, his face turning as pale as the marble beneath his polished shoes. Beside him, holding his arm like she owned it, was Vanessa, Alana's own cousin, the woman he had chosen over the bride, in front of 150 witnesses, cameras, and God himself. The air inside that church thickened. Nobody spoke. Nobody even coughed. Every head turned. Every phone rose slowly, recording what felt like history, about to repeat itself, or end completely. Alana didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply walked. Slow, measured steps that sounded like a countdown against the tile floor. The soft click of her heels echoed with a rhythm that made even the children in the back pews shiver. Then, when she reached the very center of the aisle, she stopped. In her right hand, an envelope. Cream-colored, almost delicate. In her left, a single folded piece of paper, edges crumpled as if it had been clenched tightly for weeks. Someone whispered, "What is that?" Another voice, trembling, replied, "Proof. It has to be proof." The groom swallowed hard. Vanessa's grip on his arm faltered, and then Alana raised the envelope for everyone to see. What was inside that envelope would not just shame the man who left her. It would end his family. It would leave him stripped of everything, his reputation, his future, his pride. And in that silent church, before the first tear fell or the first scream was heard, every guest realized the same chilling truth. Whatever Alana had brought back with her, it wasn't forgiveness. The envelope hovered in her hand like a final verdict. No words, no music, only the heavy sound of her breath, controlled, measured, as she let the room drown in its own guilt and curiosity. And if you're still watching, listen carefully. Before we open this envelope, before we reveal the secret that shattered an entire family, ask yourself, would you have the strength to stay in this room? Would you stand there and watch a life fall apart, or would you look away like it was just another passing scandal? If your heart just skipped, if your fingers feel just a little colder right now, pause. Hit that button, subscribe. Because these are the moments that stay with you long after the video ends. And I need to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We're watching too. Alana Reed was not born to make history. She was born quiet, the kind of woman you'd notice only in passing, a soft smile, a kind word. 27 years old, a second-grade teacher in a small town that believed love was simple. She loved early mornings, coffee on the porch, and reading old novels her grandmother left behind. The kind of woman who would stop to help a neighbor carry groceries or leave handwritten thank-you notes on her students' homework. Her life was a thread of calm routines, until Evan Blake pulled her into a story that would change her forever. He was her first crush, the boy she thought she'd outgrown but never really did. He had the kind of confidence that made promises sound like destiny, and for 3 years he built her a dream. Sunday walks through the park, quiet dinners where he swore she was the only one he'd ever loved, and when he knelt in the gazebo where they first met, sliding that ring onto her finger, she believed every word. The wedding was supposed to be perfect, a white dress passed down through generations, a church filled with flowers. Her father rehearsed his speech so many times the words became part of him. For a moment, Alana's world was exactly as she imagined, stable, safe, certain, until the altar turned into a stage for humiliation. The memory burned into her mind. one she will never escape. Evan Blake standing in front of her, leaning just close enough for her to hear the words that would break her heart in half. "I can't do this." He didn't look sorry. He didn't even look torn. Behind him, Vanessa, her own cousin, took a single step forward, and in that instant, the whispers began. Every guest saw it. Some reached for their phones, others for their mouths. Alana's father froze, her mother swayed against the pew, and the children in the back row were hushed by hands trembling too hard to comfort them. He left her there, left her standing on the altar in her grandmother's white dress, while the world watched. Her cousin smiled, small, nervous, but a smile nonetheless. The video went online before she even made it home. Clips of the abandoned bride, frozen in shock, became town gossip by the end of the night. 3 years of love destroyed in 30 seconds. And for 3 weeks, she vanished. No one knew if she was in a hotel, a friend's house, or just driving endlessly through the back roads of the state. Her phone was off, her social media silent, and in that silence, the world decided for her. Some called her weak, some pitied her, and some, crueler than the rest, laughed. But Alana wasn't gone. She was watching, waiting, and preparing for the day she would walk back, not as the bride they abandoned, but as something they would never forget. The night after the failed wedding, the town buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Neighbors whispered on porches. Phones glowed in the dark with clips from the church. The words "left at the altar" were typed more times than her own name. Evan Blake and Vanessa didn't hide. They posed in photos at a small restaurant 2 towns over, laughing like the last 3 weeks of Alana's life never existed. Vanessa wore the same necklace Alana had lent her just months before, the one meant for family heirlooms, for trust. Alana saw the photo online from the safety of her car. The world spun around her, headlights on an empty road, as the betrayal sank into something heavier than heartbreak. It was as if she'd left a door open for love, and instead, a storm had walked in and torn the walls down. The people she trusted most had chosen humiliation over honesty. They had left her broken in front of the world. In the following days, her family tried to reach her. Calls went unanswered. Texts were delivered but never read. Her mother's voice on the last voicemail cracked halfway through. "If you're listening, just come home. Please, just come home." But Alana wasn't ready to return. She was somewhere else, drifting between grief and a strange, icy calm that only those who have been stripped to the bone can understand. For 3 weeks, she watched the world move without her. And in that quiet exile, a thought grew. Not loud, not rushed. A single, deliberate thought. They took everything from me, and I still have the truth. The truth that Evan and Vanessa's perfect little story had cracks deep enough to swallow them whole. Cracks they thought no one else had noticed, but Alana had seen. Her plan didn't start with rage. It started with paper, bank statements, old hotel receipts, screenshots of messages that seemed harmless until you knew the dates. Alana spent hours collecting the fragments of betrayal that had been hiding in plain sight. She traced every secret step they had taken while she baked them engagement cupcakes and decorated save the dates. She followed the trail of hotel rooms and late-night charges, each one whispering the same thing. You were never the only one. And then, a week before she returned, she walked into a clinic, a place she never imagined she would go. She left with a single document that changed the meaning of everything Evan thought he had gained. A DNA test. And the results were not just a stain, they were an avalanche. The night she returned, the streets were wet with rain. She drove past the church first, parking in the shadow of the steeple. She sat there, engine off, listening to her own heartbeat in the quiet. In the passenger seat, an envelope, and inside it, the pieces of a life Evan would never repair. When she finally opened the car door, the wind caught her red dress and lifted it like a warning flag. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked with the steady weight of someone who had already buried her love, and was only here to show the headstone. By the time she pushed those church doors open, everyone inside felt it. The shift, the sense that whatever story they thought they were living was about to end. If you're still here, and your hands feel just a little colder, or your chest feels a little heavier, understand this. Stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're a mirror. They remind us of what betrayal looks like and what silence does to a person's soul. Subscribe now so the next time we witness a moment like this, you'll be here for the ending too. And if you're still hesitating, scroll down to the comments. Tell me why you can watch this far and remain a shadow. And while you're there, tell us your city. We're listening. The church was still. You could have heard a pin fall on the polished tile, yet every heartbeat in that room felt like a drum. Alana stood at the center aisle, the red dress pooling around her feet like a warning no one could ignore. In her hand, the envelope. Inside it, the weight of everything Evan Blake had tried to bury. She didn't speak at first. Her silence said more than words ever could. Evan's father stood up from the front pew, his hand shaking as he tried to speak her name, but Alana's eyes cut through him, calm and cold, as if to say, "Not this time. You had your chance to protect me." She lifted the envelope and with a single flick of her wrist, opened it. A stack of photographs fell into her hand. The guests leaned forward, phones trembling in their grip, waiting for a sound, a word, a scream. But Alana only walked forward, her heels clicking against the tile, and handed the first photo to Evan himself. It was a grainy image, hotel hallway security footage. Evan, Vanessa, laughing, hand in hand, date stamped 3 months before the wedding. A whisper ran through the church like a gust of wind. Someone muttered, "No." Another gasped so loudly it echoed. She gave him the second photo. This one was clearer. Evan, shirtless, a champagne bottle in hand. Vanessa wrapped in a hotel bedsheet. Date stamped the weekend of his supposed bachelor trip. The air thickened, pressing down on every chest. Evan's mother covered her mouth. Vanessa's hands shook, her manicured fingers gripping the pew for balance. But Alana wasn't done. From the envelope came the third item, a single sheet of paper. She held it high, so every guest could see the bold letters at the top. Paternity test results. Gasps became a roar. Some guests stood to see better, others backed away as if the truth itself carried weight. Alana took 2 steps closer to the altar, her voice finally breaking the silence for the first time in weeks. "Congratulations, Evan. You're going to be a father. To your fiancé's child. But it isn't mine." The words sliced through the room like glass shattering in slow motion. Evan staggered back, his face collapsing into something unrecognizable. Vanessa tried to speak, but her voice cracked into a choked sob. The pews erupted, some in anger, some in disbelief, and some in a quiet satisfaction no one would admit to feeling. And then, calmly, Alana set the final nail in the coffin. From the same envelope she produced a flash drive. She plugged it into the church's projection screen, a setup meant to play their wedding slideshow. Instead, a video filled the wall, Evan and Vanessa caught in a hotel lobby, laughing, kissing, Evan whispering words that only a few could make out, words meant for a woman he promised he'd never betray. The room erupted. Evan's father lunged forward, snatching the flash drive from the projector and hurling it to the ground. His mother stood frozen, the shame and fury in her eyes heavy enough to crush the man who had carried their family name. Guests spilled out into the streets, recording everything, narrating the ruin live to the world outside. Phones buzzed, notifications pinged. By the time Evan stumbled out of that church, he wasn't just a groom who left his bride. He was a public disgrace. Vanessa fled first, shoving past relatives, tears streaking her carefully done makeup. Evan followed, head low, as whispers turned to shouts. No one reached out to stop Alana. No one dared. She simply turned, stepped into the fading light of the evening, and walked away. No smile, no tears, just the heavy silence of a woman who had finished what she came to do. if your heart is pounding, if you can almost feel the weight of that envelope in your own hands, understand this. Stories like this are why we exist here. Because for every betrayal, every public humiliation, there's a truth that refuses to stay buried. Subscribe now. So when justice comes wrapped in quiet footsteps and a red dress, you'll be here to witness it. If you won't, go to the comments. Tell me why you've watched this far and stayed silent. And tell me your city, because somewhere out there, someone will read your name. By nightfall, the video of the ruined Groom had already traveled beyond the small town, first on phones, then on feeds. By morning, strangers across the country were leaving comments on clips of Evan Blake falling apart in his own church. Some called him a coward, some called him a fool, and some, in brutal honesty, called him exactly what he was, a man who believed secrets could stay buried forever. The fallout was immediate. Evan's parents closed the family business for the first time in 20 years, blinds drawn tight, the phone ringing without answer. By the third day, the sign that bore their last name had been taken down. Vanessa's family stopped answering calls. Her friends deleted her photos, her cousin's betrayal echoing louder than any apology ever could. She moved out of town in the middle of the night, her car packed to the roof, her face hidden behind the visor of a hoodie. And Evan became a ghost in the place he once walked so proudly. He was fired from his job the following week. Company reputation, they said. No one wanted to be associated with the man whose name had become the punchline of betrayal. But Alana never gloated, not once. She never posted a word online. She never defended herself or thanked the thousands of strangers who flooded her messages with sympathy. Her revenge wasn't in the likes. It was in the silence she left behind. A silence heavy enough to crush the ones who had laughed at her pain. Weeks passed, and the town slowly adjusted to its new rhythm. Gossip faded into the background, replaced by other headlines, other distractions. But one story never lost its grip on the people who witnessed it in that church. Sometimes, at the grocery store, a stranger would approach Alana's mother with a soft hand on the shoulder, whispering, "She's stronger than we ever knew." Because strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's walking into the same room that tried to break you and leaving it in ashes. Today, Alana Reed lives far from the town that betrayed her. She rents a small apartment above a quiet street, where no one knows her story unless she chooses to tell it. She spends her mornings in soft light, a cup of tea in hand. The world finally is quiet as she once wished her heart could be. She doesn't attend weddings anymore. She doesn't scroll through feeds of smiling couples. But she writes letters to herself, to the woman she used to be. And in one of them she wrote a single sentence that has never left her. "I didn't take revenge. I told the truth. And I walked away." If your chest feels heavier after hearing this, if you feel that weight pressing against you as if you were in that church, understand this. Betrayal isn't just a story, it's a mirror. Some will walk past it untouched. Others will see their own reflection and shiver. If you've stayed this long, don't just scroll away like the world tried to do to Alana. Subscribe now. Be the kind of person who doesn't look away when the truth comes dressed in red. And if you won't, go to the comments. Explain why you watched to the end and stayed in the shadows. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Because somewhere, someone will read your name. And remember this story. The story of Alana Reed will not appear in history books. It will not be studied in classrooms or celebrated in parades. But for the 150 people who sat in that church, and for the millions who now know her name through a screen, she is unforgettable. Because justice doesn't always arrive in a courtroom. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in patience, in the steady footsteps of a woman who has nothing left to lose. They say the world forgets the quiet ones first. But that day, the quiet one became the echo no one could escape. And now I leave you with one question. If it had been you standing in that white dress, if it had been your cousin, your love, your life shattered in public, Would you have walked away quietly? Or would you have returned one last time to tell the truth? Leave your answer in the comments below, because how you answer says more about you than you might think, and if you've watched this far and still haven't subscribed, understand this: silence is a choice. It's the same choice everyone made when they turned their backs on Alana the day she was left at the altar. Do not be like them. Hit that red button now. Be the voice that doesn't look away. And if you still won't, then go to the comments. Type exactly why you refuse to subscribe, and tell us where in the world you're watching from, because one day, someone might read your name, the way the town read Evan Blake's, and they will remember.